It's 2025, and guess who's still here? Men and women of culture, welcome back to Challenge Your Boy Senzo. We're back at again, back with another video, with the very first video of 2025. Great to be here, great to have a great, just great to be here, great to actually, welcome you guys into 2025. And before we actually even start with the first 2025 video, we should actually go into how 2024 was in the state of gaming. 2024 for gaming was, for lack of a better word, was good. Might be even great. It wasn't as a phenomenal year as 2023. It was definitely a year that I think I spent a lot of time actually just trying to figure out what my tastes are in gaming and trying to figure out the love I have for gaming and stuff like that. So here's what we're going to do with this video, right? So we're going to go through the year 2024, but we're not going to do like a full-blown year in review of 2024 in terms of like the year of like the gaming industry. We're going to do a year in 2024 in terms of the games I played from the month of January all the way to the month of December. And now without further ado, let's head into the video. The very first game in January that I played that I think a lot of people didn't really give it the credits it deserved was obviously Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown, especially when it comes from like Metroidvania 2D games and 2D platform games. It's been a heck of a ride when it comes to how I've enjoyed going back into these types of games, especially with Metroid Dread back into 2023. Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is definitely one of those games that people overlooked because it was a Ubisoft game and because it was a 2D Prince of Persia game. People were looking forward to a 3D Prince of Persia game, but overlooked a game that is, in all sense and purposes, a phenomenal game from head to toe. Unfortunately, the team that made the game has dissolved, but you know what? I still think this is a game that would really, I mean, I'm mentioning it here, so it's definitely in my top 10. Definitely my top 10 games that I actually enjoyed playing in 2024. And I think if you still haven't played this game, I think you can get this game on sale for like maybe 15 quid or $15 wherever you're at. And yeah, it was a really good game. The only bad thing I have to say about the game probably has to do with just, there were some times it was longer than it had to be, but in all, I think I finished the game in another 18 hours, so it was a very good experience I actually had to get to. And yeah, definitely the first game of the year that actually, made the more or less set pace with how the year was going to go. And it only makes sense that the following month was filled with bangers from JRPGs. Look, 2024 was the JRPG year. 2024 was the RPG year. Now, for people who aren't into that genre of game, or that genre of gaming, are probably going to find 2024 to be a very boring year. But for someone like me, who enjoys JRPG and who enjoyed the Final Fantasy series, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was my game of the year. As at this time, in February 2024, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was single-handedly the best game I had played in 2024. What didn't it have? Especially coming from someone who played a little bit of Final Fantasy VII, the original one. It had the gameplay, it had the story, it had the graphics were all over the place because the graphics were on PlayStation 5 and it looked like ass, but that's besides the point. It had everything it had to do for it. It had content. It was content filled. Maybe the mini games were a bit too much for most people, but I think for me, and I think for what I enjoyed when it came to games like Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, it was a phenomenal game from head to toe. And I'm actually even thinking about the very last sequence of the game where you're fighting against Genova in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth and the song kicks in, the OST for Final Fantasy VII kicks in. It's like, yo, this game was my game of the year at the time. And to be fair with you, and the way I play games is, when it came to Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, I played this from February all the way to probably April. So it took me about 3 months to finish the game. 81 hours clocked in. Did most of the things I felt I needed to do. I wasn't going to 100% complete this game because it was just too much. I didn't have the time to put into it. But the game was really solid. It was a really solid game. And it only made sense that from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the JRPG masterpiece, I was really always going to jump into another JRPG another great JRPG game from a JRPG world-class Ballon d'Or developers, which is Persona 3 Reload. Now, Persona 3 Reload didn't get any callbacks or didn't get any recognition from the Game Awards, which I found was weird because in terms of a remake, in terms of a game that comes back into bringing the things that people enjoyed from the original Persona 3, this game had everything. Even to its flaws, it still had the monotonous dungeon crawling aspect of the game that has obviously been perfected in Persona 5. But I think in Persona 3 Reload, it didn't hit as much as Persona 5 did for me when I first played Persona 5, especially Persona 5 Royal. But nevertheless, it's still a Persona game. you still get that atmosphere, you still get that feel, you still get that vibe, you still get the, not more of like the pop infused OST from Persona 5 Reload, but this was more of like mid 2006, mid 2000s jam, hip hop, jazz, hip hop kind of, mid 2006 jazz, hip hop atmosphere and stuff like that. And I found it really, really compelling as a game, even though I didn't really like it as much as I liked Persona 5, which obviously is Persona 3, so it's obviously before Persona 5 got better, definitely. So now, the following months of July was probably one of the slowest months for me because I ended up playing a game that a lot of people played, but I think we all came to the conclusion that this game was probably an alright game at the most part, and that was Flintlock The Siege of Dawn. Flintlock The Siege of Dawn was trying to be multiple things at the same time. It was trying to be a Souls-like game. It was trying to be this sort of Greedfall-esque kind of game where you had like mechanics of shooting, mechanics of just fighting, Bloodborne, Soulsborne elements, Souls-like elements type of game. And it did some things good for the most part, but for the other parts, the story wasn't there. There wasn't really a story you could actually fall back on. It didn't really make any sense to me. The graphics were muddy, so this is definitely what you would call a AA game that really spoke to its AA tendencies. Now, it wasn't a bad game. For the most part, I ended up finishing the game in I think 8 or 9 hours, so it didn't really take that much out of me to actually go through this game. But I think it was a game that I had to, let's put it this way, picture it as a palate cleanser, because the following games that came out the next month, we had the phenomenal Astrobot, we had Warhammer Space Marine 3, and we had Black Myth Wukong. So, I didn't play Space Marine 3. I still haven't played Space Marine 3. No, Space Marine 2. Why did I keep on saying Space Marine 3? I still haven't played Space Marine 2. Just because I haven't finished playing Space Marine 1 and I'll be playing other things. I will get to that at some point in this year, hopefully, because this year is also stacked. But Astrobot, as at this moment, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was my game of the year. Astrobot was a very close second because Astrobot spoke to the true tendencies of what it actually matters to be a game, what we actually look for when it comes to gaming, what we look for when it comes to gameplay, feel, the fun factor, the element of just having fun, the surprises, the cameos. Yes, it had the cheat code of having nostalgia because it uses PlayStation characters from other famous IPs, but nevertheless, in terms of a game that was fun to its core, that defined fun, it only made sense that Astrobot still got the recognition it deserved in the awards of 2024. In the Game Awards. It only makes sense that Astrobot still got the recognition it deserved in the Game Awards. And then we also had on the other end of a game, which for most people felt that this was going to be the game of the year. For me, I felt it had some good things. Graphically was very impressive. The feel was very impressive. And obviously, I'm talking about Black Myth Wukong. I mean, I made videos about Black Myth Wukong. I made a lot of views from Black Myth Wukong. I've said all the things I have with Black Myth Wukong. I've given you all the gripes. I've given you all the pros, the cons. And at the end of the day, it still comes down to the same thing. And it still comes back to I still feel the same way I felt about Black Myth Wukong when I made my review of this particular game. It's a great first game. It's a great first step into the Black Myth franchise, knowing about Sun Wukong and what he does, the Monkey King, and just Chinese mythos and whatever. As a first game, great. As a game, it was lacking some things that, especially a lot of quality of life improvements that you should expect from a game of this caliber. But nevertheless, I expect this to be a phenomenal franchise going forward when the sequel comes out. I'm 100% sure that if Game Science takes in every single feedback that they've gotten from this particular game and applies it to the next game, holy. Now, as at this time, Final Fantasy VII Rebirth was still my game of the year. It was still going to be number one. But I had the feeling the masterminds behind Persona would make a show and actually steal the show from Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. And they did. Metaphor ReFantazio. What do I need to say about this game? What I don't need to say anything more about this game. This game speaks to this game highlights all the things we've been missing from when it comes to gaming, especially from JRPGs, especially from storytelling, especially from narrative, especially from being able to talk about serious social issues in a way that isn't patronizing, in a way that isn't preaching to you, but more or less it challenges you with your thoughts about what you think about things of race wars, discrimination, racism, sexism, all the isms. And it does it in such a way that it brings out a compelling story that talks about suffering, that talks about strive, talks about perseverance, and just the greatest cast of support characters I've ever seen in a game, especially when it comes to a JRPG game. Metaphor ReFantazio single-handedly is my game of the year. Nothing comes close to this. Nothing will come close to this. Well, hopefully something does come close to this, because I'm expecting something like Persona 6 to do some big things. But in terms of what the game means to me and what the game did in terms of just storytelling and just impact, Metaphor ReFantazio is that game. It is single-handedly my game of the year for 2024. It goes without saying. I know a lot of people feel the same way as well, and I'm very sure a lot of people were still surprised that Astrobot won the Game of the Year awards, and I'm not mad that it did, but nevertheless, deep down, Metaphor ReFantazio, clear winner. Very debatable between this and Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, but at the end of the day, just like, you know what? Yeah, the story spoke to more of my tendencies, spoke more to my sensibilities. And then in the year 2024, we're about to finish up, don't worry, we're about to head out. In the year 2024, we saw a dichotomy of games from a trusted developer, which ended up being very mediocre in the strengths of that particular developer in BioWare, in Dragon Age: The Veilguard. Technically sound game, artistically, visually impressive, but the story, oh my lord, the story was a mess. And I think you could say the story was a mess because a lot of the fantasy RPG games we've been getting along have been very happy-go-lucky, young adult storytelling, and there isn't anything wrong with that. But I think when we get too much of something, it ends up spoiling the full process of what we enjoyed about RPGs, especially fantasy RPGs. Like Baldur's Gate 3 was phenomenal because it was dark. The Witcher 3 was phenomenal because of the narrative, the storytelling, the consequences. It meant something. The choices you made meant something. Dragon Age: The Veilguard felt like an 18-year-old trying to make an edgy novel, and it fell face flat in the storytelling department. I just hope that when the next Mass Effect game comes out, that the whole writing staff is uprooted, because I put about 60 hours into the game. The game was okay, the combat was good, but the storytelling and story means a lot to me when it comes to RPGs. Story makes or breaks an RPG for me, and the storytelling for this was it was a mess. It was a mess, guys. It was a mess. Yeah, and then obviously the last game of 2024 that I played. Now, I left off games like Stellar Blade, I left off games like Marvel Rivals, I left off games like Space Marine 2, left off games like, all the phenomenal games that came out in the year that I didn't get to play because I was busy doing other things. But I always made sure that growing up as a fan of my parent, growing up as a kid with my parents who raised me, who were very into 80s action heroes, it didn't go without saying that I was going to play Indiana Jones and the Great Circle. And this game surprised me. I wasn't a fan of how the game looked in the previews. I wasn't a fan because it looked stiff, and rightfully so. Even playing the game, it still looked stiff. But the immersion of you being Indiana Jones, especially coming from someone who's a big Indiana Jones fan, especially from the old movies, the only 3 movies that really matter, we don't talk about anything else. The Great Circle, Troy Baker as Indiana Jones, the storytelling, the set design, the level design, just the whole immersive perspective of you being Indiana Jones and just being in that archaeological era of just discovering things, being that badass. This game rocks. This game rules. This game single-handedly proved me wrong, especially when it comes to first person perspective games. I'm looking forward to this being a franchise. I know it's going to be expensive. I know it might not even be doable. I don't know why I doubted Machine Games from actually releasing a solid product. This isn't just solid. This is probably one of the best Xbox games that have come out ever since Hi-Fi Rush. It is that good of a game, and I'll be surprised if a lot of people haven't played the game because the game is that good. Runs perfectly well on PC, although if you don't have a 12 GB VRAM, a 12 gigabyte VRAM graphics card, you're in trouble. That's all I'm going to say. But apart from that, everything else about the game was solid. The experiences were solid. Even just the impact of just punching someone was incredible. Yeah, man, I don't know what to say. And in short, just looking back on all the games I played in 2024, 2024 was a good year. It was definitely a good year. It wasn't a massive year like 2023. We didn't have 9 over 10s, 9 over 10s, 9 over 10s. We had bangers. We had Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. We had Astrobots. We had Metaphor and Fantasio. We had Indiana Jones. Some people would even consider we had Space Marine 2. Stellar Blade. I'm still going to get Stellar Blade when it comes out on PC. Not for any other reason. But we had games. We had games that if you are a gamer and if you actually went out of your comfort zone to actually play, there were games that everyone had. So what do you guys think about 2024 as a year in gaming? Quite frankly speaking, it's probably been one of the better years. Not best, not bad, better, good. Solid year of games from different genres, mostly JRPG, RPG year, which is probably the reason why I really loved this year to begin with in the first place. And 2025 looks like it's going to be a banger, especially coming from Xbox with all the massive games that are going to be released. I'm expecting GTA 6 to be delayed to 2026. I would prefer it to be delayed to 2026 because it makes more sense for me and my pockets, but that's besides the point. So what do you guys think about game? What do you guys think about 2024 in terms of gaming? Leave in the comment section down below what you think. And like I said, Happy New Year, welcome to 2025. A year of new things, a year of new video ideas, growth, success, loving you guys and stuff like that. So yeah, appreciate you guys for watching the video. Thanks for watching, like, comment, subscribe. And without further ado, I'll see you guys in the next one.